All right, hello. So today we are going to do some ordering of numbers, a real number line. Okay. So say you're given this list of numbers here. How can you figure out which one's greater, which one's less than? Hmm. So the way I like to do it is by drawing a number line. And just that. Okay, so I have a line. Then I want to separate it between negatives and positives using 0. I know the positives are on the right-hand side and the negatives are on the left-hand side. So I'm going to start with the easier ones, like -2. And that's going to be 2 away from the origin, or 0. Got that down. And, which one is greater? 2 or 2.8? That's right. 2.8 is greater than 2 because 2.8 is 2 plus 0.8. So if 2.8 is greater than 2 and then multiplied by -1, it's going to become less than -2. So it's less than -2, and from -2 we move about 0.8. So around here is -2.8. Okay, so we got that one down. Is that all we've got on the negatives? No, we've got the negative square root of 3. How can we determine how much the square root of 3 is? Once we figure out what the square root of 3 is, we can see if it's greater than 2 or 2.8 or less than 2 or 2.8, and then we'll know where to place it by multiplying it by 1. Let me show you how. So you take the square root of 3, and the best way is to probably give some room there. Take the square root of 3, and you say, well, the square root of 3 is greater than a number and is less than a number because we're dealing with real numbers. The set of real numbers is dense, and so there's always numbers in between numbers. So the square root of 3 is in between two numbers. Okay, since 3 is bigger than 2, we can say that the square root of 3 is bigger than square root of 2. And since 3 is less than 4, we can say the square root of 3 is less than the square root of 4. But then we ask the question, what times what gives us 2? The same thing. The same thing times itself gives us 2. We know 1 times 2 gives us 2, but I'm having a hard time thinking of a natural number, your counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that when multiplied together, or the same, multiplied by itself, it gives you 2. So we have to now say that square root of 2 is greater than a number. Let me think of 1. If the square root of 1 is less than the square root of 2, and the square root of 3 is greater than the square root of 2, then the square root of 1 is less than the square root of 3, which is less than, which the square root of 3 is less than the square root of 4. Okay, what number multiplied by itself gets you 1? That's right. 1 times 1 gives you 1, so the square root of 1 is 1. And what number multiplied by itself gives you 4? That's right. 2 times 2 gives you 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. So the square root of 3 is between 1 and 2. So it's less than 2 and it's greater than 1. But it's the negative square root of 3. And remember we said if it's multiplied by a negative number, then it's going to be, if the number is greater than the number we're comparing, and you multiply by negative, then it's going to be less than. If the number is less than the number we're comparing, then it's going to be greater than. So the square root of negative 3, or the negative square root of 3 is less than the square root of 2. So it goes around right here. All right, so we took care of that one. We've taken care of all the negative ones. Let's look at the positive ones. What's the square root of 6? We know where 4 is, and we have an idea where 7/2 is. So what should we start with? Let's start with the whole number. We know 4 is 4 away from the origin, so that's around right here. So we took care of that. And 7/2 is how many times does 2 go into 7? So we have 7. How many times does 2 go into 7? So it goes in one time, it goes in a second time, it goes in a third time. So, and you're left with half of 2. 1 is half of 2. So you're left with 3.5, which is less than 4. So we took care of that. Now, let's look at square root of 6. We can use the same idea here. Square root of 6 is between two numbers. Let's say square root of 5 and the square root of 7. But what is the square root of 7? What is the square root of 5? The square root of 5 is greater than the square root of 4. And we know what that is, so we'll just write that. And the square root of 7 is less than the square root of 8. But what is that? The square root of 8 is less than the square root of 9. So we'll just write that one because we know that the square root of 9 is 3. So square root of 6 is between 2 and 3. So it's right here. Okay, now we got them in order. It goes from negative 2.8 to negative 2 to negative 3 to square root of 6 to 3.5 to 4. All done.